customization. So they want to have the freedom to essentially customize their education to fit their specific preferences and needs. And so they want, and that suggests not only customizing the content and the approach, but also the ability to do it when and where it suits them. So freedom of access. So what if we accept these claims? You can see obviously they have significant implications for education and more specifically for higher education. And really what the kind of overall implication suggests is a similar shift to what we're seeing in the world of the internet as we move into Web 2.0. A shift from an architecture of presentation where information is kind of one way and we just receive it and make use of it, to an architecture of participation. So the idea then that we would have much more collaborative learning, there would be much more use of multimedia, of highly interactive learning, and that this entire generation expects to be entertained in their learning, that their learning is much more personalized, and that there would be much more use of digital game-based learning. And I don't think any of us would disagree that any of those things are bad things. Those are all probably approaches that we would want to use in many of our programs and courses. But again, the point I'm making is we shouldn't be suggesting that these approaches are blanket approaches that would be used for an entire generation, regardless of the specific needs of those students and the specific needs of the program that they're involved in. So why do I think the claims that are being made about this generation are questionable? Well, I've looked at the research, and just to give you a bit of background where this came from is we began a research study at BCIT, which was intended to look at try to understand the communication preferences of our students. So how they were using technology to communicate between and amongst themselves and with their instructors. So we're trying to understand that aspect of their life. And as we were designing this research, we started to look at some of the literature around this and got into the net generation literature, and then started to notice, and I started to look at my own two children who are 22 and 27 and compare them to the claims that were being made about this generation and seeing that it just didn't match. And then also we started to notice our own students and realized that in many cases their behavior didn't fit these characteristics. So we thought as part of this research study we would also try to determine to what extent our students fit that net generation profile. And so we did an extensive review of the literature, of the research that had been done on the net generation. And what we found is that the claims, as I said earlier, are not based on sound research. There is a very strong, first of all, a very strong North American and American bias to the research. Most of it comes out of the United States. It comes from very small samples in colleges in very unrepresentative regions of the United States. And furthermore, as we were doing our own review, a couple of very systematic literature reviews came out, which also suggested that the claims were not supported by research. And then we actually started to find some research that had been done well, and that was contradicting many of these claims. So I want to just go through, and I don't want to do a detailed literature review, but I want to just highlight some of the main works that have been produced in which these claims are made, and then look at some of the stronger research that tends to contradict it. One of the first ones, one of the early ones that came out, and one that has been used and sort of coined another term, the term the millennial learner, was the book by Howe and Strauss called Millennials Rising. And the problem with this book is that if you look at where the data actually came from, it was largely based on two surveys of 200 school teachers and 660 students in one county in Fairfax, Virginia. And apparently, and I don't know exactly where that is, but I'm told that it's a fairly upper middle class part of Virginia, close to Washington. So it's hardly a representative sample of the United States college population. And some of the claims that they make in their work is that this generation has a desire for working in teams and for collaboration. They're very focused on achievement. They're very modest, and they have good conduct. And so he actually doesn't deal in detail with the educational implications. It's much more about the kind of generational characteristics related more to the kind of work environment. Another one that is widely, and one of the things about all of these works is that these are the ones that tend to get cited most often when people are